How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
My people, it is your host, Eric Erickson, and I am delighted to be with you. I'm so glad to be back at work. I love my job and you people. I say you people endearingly. The phone number is 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. And if you text Eric to 33777, ERICK to 33777, you can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast, the 4 Things to Know in the Afternoon podcast, social media links. The very first link, Eric to 33777, the very first link is the show notes. And if you open it, and they're not behind the paywall today, I got in a dental chair and an orthodontist chair at like 9:20, 9:25 this morning. Didn't get to the office till after 11 o'clock. I'm really doing my show off the top of my head in real time today. You should see the outline. There isn't one. But I am a professional. And even my bad days on radio are better than all the other radio out there. So you're good and safe in my hands. And we should talk about the bat crap crazy lady in New York City. My Lord, this woman. Y'all, this lady is nuts. So you know the commie chick in New York, the one without the eyebrows who talks with the voice inflection? She's a communist, and she wants to take your property, and she wants to think that white supremacy is bad. This woman is so I got to replay you the audio. Here. The crazy commie lady in New York City who's now the tenant advocate for New York. She's a commie. She actually is in the Democratic Socialists of America, complete communist. Her old tweets have surfaced. If you get the show notes today, I put a blurb in there. It's somewhat abridged because I only had like 40 minutes to put the thing together. But she has talked about how she wants to impoverish white people by using rental controls, tearing down the value of their property. Listen to this woman one more time, and I want you to note, because I played it the other day, I want you to note how POC just rolls off her tongue. Whites and POC, people of color. Now, can I just say, the things that white progressives say, Latinx, normal people don't say these things. Why is it that white progressives have to speak like no one else? Wait. Side note here. I got to find this. No, trust me. You're going to want to hear this. This is doctoral research. Colin Wright, I love following that guy on social media. He finds the most wackadoo stuff. All of these wackadoo progressives, they all speak in gobbledygook. And what it is, so that you've got to understand, this is a pattern and strategy. They're not very smart people. And in being not very smart people, they speak in jargon so that you nor they can understand themselves. But in so doing, they mask their idiocy behind multiple syllables. This is an abstract that Colin Wright found. The Auto Storia Terroria offers a Joteria critique of the anti-erotic neoliberal academy, written from my positionality as a queer crip Chicanx doctoral student and educator, not Chicana, but Chicanx, doctoral student and educator. I draw on the elements of earth, air, fire, and water, positively the avatar, I must say, to ground queer conocimiento and theorize how cycles of rupture and fragmentation transform into queer resilience and eco-erotic healing. My eco-erotic framework and witty pedagogy are informed by Audre Lorde's notion of the erotic hell hooks engaged pedagogy, Gloria Anzaldua's auto historia terroria, and the communal practices of the Wetty Collective, whose creative and relational world building shapes my understanding of queer survival. While these frameworks overlap, this project distinguishes the eco-erotic as an elemental spiritual and emotional grounding, whereas Wetty is a queer crip Chicanx Rashk praxis that makes strategy for survival and collective meaning possible. I further introduce the Tzoltitl cycle, a queer eco-erotic process of filth, digestion, and transformation that reimagines how shame, rupture, and sacred mess become sites of rebirth and queer conocimiento. If you can understand that, you're an idiot. Just so you understand, you really are insane. If you understand, it's psychobabble. It's nonsensical psychobabble at that. But this is from a progressive PhD candidate getting a PhD in essentially nonsense. And they all talk like this. So Colin Wright asks Grok, translate into plain language what the author means by claiming to be a sensitive blankety blank rancho queer spiraling through sacred filth wet with Rosh Puteria survival dripping eco-erotic conocimiento. And Grok says, the phrase appears to be poetry, identity-affirming statement in queer Chicanx theory style. In plain English, it means I am a sensitive rural queer swirling through holy taboo dirtiness, soaking in resourceful, whorish survival tactics, overflowing with nature-connected erotic wisdom. It appears that what this person is trying to avoid saying is that they like to be peed upon. I'm sorry, the silence is not intentional. It's just these people are insane, which brings me back to the crazy commie New York City rental person who just rolls off the tongue, POC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Listen to this crazy woman.
Democratically controlled public housing is really important. And that's why when Raquel is talking about the communities and that she's describing, that, you know, that's a created community where the people who are living there are like setting the agenda. And so, you know, people like home ownership because they like control, and that's been perverted by like deep racism and deep classism in our society. So like we have to not have a racist and classist society. And so that's like something we need to think about like deeply. But, you know, to me, it's about control. And why rent control is really important is because rent control alters the power dynamic between renters and who owns the building.
Oh, Lord. This is from the editorial board of the Washington Post, rather. It didn't take long for the warmth of collectivism to heat up the debate around home ownership in New York City. One of his first actions as mayor, Zoran Mamdani, relaunched the Office to Protect Tenants and appointed Shea Weaver as its director. Weaver, a fellow member of the Democratic Socialists of America, has claimed home ownership is a weapon of white supremacy and clamored to seize private property. On a recently deactivated Twitter account, New York's new tenant Zarina posted in 2021 that rent control is a perfect solution to everything and bragged that it's a more effective way to shrink the value of real estate than zoning restrictions. In 2018, she wrote, impoverish the white middle class. Home ownership is racist. Failed public policy. The same year, she said there is no such thing as a good gentrifier and described gentrification as part of a centuries-long process of white supremacy. She also called to elect more communists. How Weaver plans to navigate the little problem of constitutionally protected property rights remains unclear, but the elevation of someone with such ugly and radicalized views into a position of authority in America's biggest city is fresh evidence that Mamdani's not joking when he said during his inaugural address, he will make no apology for what we believed. I was was elected as a Democratic Socialist, and I will govern as a Democratic Socialist. I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. But yet he's too scared to admit he's a communist. That's the one thing here. These chickens are communists, and they're too scared to admit it, and they have the press doing protection for them. Well, he's not a communist. He just wants to seize the means of production. They're so bold and brave and yet can't admit what they are. They say they want to elect more communists, but hide behind the veneer of democratic socialists, like the Democratic Socialist Republic of Germany, which were the East Germans, who were even more brutal than the Soviets to a degree. And now, here's where the rubber meets the road. Mamdani is arguing that a building in bankruptcy can't be sold because it's unsustainable business. Let me read you a paragraph. This is recently now filed in a bankruptcy case in New York by Mamdani's administration. They wasted no time here. The city submits that the debtors and Summit have failed to demonstrate the properties can support the proposed sale price and maintenance needs and costs given the regulated rents. An analysis of the department based on information and belief is that the proposed sale would not lead to a supportable business as long as the properties continue to have exclusively rent-stabilized or rent-controlled units because the current rents are very low averaging. What does this mean? In non-legalese, what this means is that Mamdani is saying that because New York has imposed rent control on this building, the building can't be a sustainable business, because you can't make enough money to cover the costs of repair of the building. New York has said you're not allowed to raise the costs on. Therefore, you should have to surrender the building to New York City. This plays into Clarence Thomas's hands. Justice Thomas believes rent control is an unconstitutional taking. New York tells this landlord, you can rent out the building, but you are going to be rent controlled. You can't raise prices beyond what we say you can. New York then refuses to raise rental prices even at the rate of inflation, so the landlord can't fix up the property without losing money. The landlord can do no improvements without losing money. So the landlord can no longer pay the mortgage and fix up the building, so goes bankrupt. And New York City now says, well, you're going to have to give us the building. You can't sell the building because it's rent controlled, and you can't make an ongoing business because you can't rent at a rate to sustain it. So you're going to have to give us the building and let us take it over. Now, Josh Barrow has pointed this out, and I think he's right. The Supreme Court's probably reluctant to get involved in rent control. But if the government is arguing, as New York City is now arguing, that a 2019 rent control law has reduced the economic value of a building to zero, that's a taking. Justice Thomas has been begging for the opportunity to declare rent control unconstitutional. By the way, just consider Javier Milei down in Argentina. They had a crisis in Buenos Aires. They didn't have enough rental properties. The rent was too high in unrent controlled areas. The rest of it, the landlords just refused to rent places. He got rid of rent control, solved the housing crisis overnight. In fact, you know what's happened? Rent's gone down in Buenos Aires. How is that possible? Because there's now so much available rental space. For those of you who live in most parts of the country who don't understand what rental control is, just so you have it. Rent control says that there is a ceiling on the price you're allowed to rent your apartment at. So you could get $4,000 a month on the open market. Rental control says you're only allowed to rent it for $1,000 a month. So you can only make $12,000 a year off this building instead of $24,000 a year off this building or off this apartment. And it's going to cost you money to fix it up. The tenants don't have to fix the plumbing. The tenants don't have to fix the electrical. The tenants don't have to fix the floors or the roof or the ceiling. You have to do that, and you can't make money off of it. So what do you wind up doing? You wind up not renting. It's cheaper for you to not rent the place because then you don't have to pay for the upgrades. So you don't rent. You freeze people out of the housing market. That's what rent control ultimately does. But the communists think that's a good thing, because what the communists then argue is that, well, we should take over your property. You're not renting it. We're going to rent it. We're going to condemn your property. You've now reduced the value of the building because you don't rent it. So we're now going to buy the building from you forcibly using condemnation at a reduced rate because you're not renting it, and we're going to take it over. That's their end goal here. These people are trying to take over private property in New York, and Justice Thomas is begging for the perfect case to declare rent control an unlawful taking under the Fifth Amendment, and this is the perfect case, and I hope it goes to the Supreme Court.
Y'all, I'm not a New Year's resolution guy. I never have been, but I have resolved, I guess you could say, before the New Year's to just drink more water. It's good for you. And I buy bottled water for the office, but I finally broke down and I bought a Cove Pure. So if you don't know what it is, it's an incredible machine. It's got technology that's certified to remove 99.9% of contaminants from the water. It gets rid of PFAs, microplastics, pharmaceutical residue, fluoride. It gets everything removed. It's the purest water you can get, and you just pour tap water in the back and let the filters do the work, and it just works. When I used it for the first time, I didn't realize you could heat up the water. You can chill the water. You can just have regular tap water at room temperature, and it just works with the push of a button. It sits right on the countertop. Didn't have to call a plumber. It makes it really easy. Cove Pure is so easy to get pure water with the push of a button. Do your New Year's resolution, improve your health with the real clean water. Right now, you can get $200 off for a limited time at covepure.com/Eric. That's COVEPURE, covepure.com/Eric, ERICK.
Well, Dr. Oz is out changing the alcohol guidelines for the United States of America, according to the Trump administration. Kind of ironic. Donald Trump is a teetotaler, and his administration is scrapping the 1 to 2 drink guideline. According to Dr. Oz, there was never good data, and, quote, alcohol is a social lubricant that brings people together. There's nothing healthier than having a good time with friends. Just don't have it for breakfast. Now, that's Dr. Oz's quote, not mine. He's the doctor. They are rolling back the alcohol drinking guidelines. So more than 2 drinks is fine if you're with friends. I guess that's where they're headed with this. There definitely are changes that should be made, but this whole administration, like the president and the Hyde Amendment, I actually saw someone argue today that direct payments to families for health care is good, and we shouldn't control how they spend that money if it's on health care. I'm like, you people don't want families on welfare to buy soft drinks and fatty pre-made foods, but you're okay with them using the money to kill their kids? No. By the way, I don't think Republicans are going to walk back the Hyde Amendment. I've been talking to a number of Republicans in the House, and they would rather not do health care subsidies than scrap the Hyde Amendment. So I don't think the president's going to get his way on this issue. He has angered a lot of pro-lifers overnight. If you're not familiar with this, happened yesterday. The president told Republicans at their meeting that they need to essentially be flexible in the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment prohibits taxpayer funding for abortion except in cases of rape, incest, and life of the mother. It is a longstanding public policy for Republicans, and they're not going to abandon it. Most Americans also, even pro-choice Americans or pro-abortion Americans, don't think the government should be paying for abortions, so they're not going to change that. Vision Computer, if you're looking at making a change this year, technology-wise, would be a great partner, and it doesn't matter where you are in the country. They work with individuals and businesses nationwide. They can build you computers. They can upgrade your computers. They can be your managed IT service if you're in the gig economy individually. It's just $199 a year. If you're a company, it's per computer. You can go in, and instead of having an in-house IT guy, use Vision as your managed IT solution. Now, listen, I know there are a lot of managed IT solutions in the country, but a lot of them are now relying on AI, and your employees have to deal with a chat bot that's AI. With Vision Computers, you're using real people, and your employees get a phone number they call, not a chat bot. And in 15 seconds or less, someone's going to answer the phone and guide them through whatever ails them, what they can't figure out. They can remote in even to help your employees. So not only do you save money and increase productivity, but you're having your employees partner with real people instead of AI chatbots. So go to visioncomputers.com today or call them at 404-COMPUTE. Anyone nationwide can take advantage of this. Any company nationwide can take advantage of this. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Do people with not just real people, but really good people. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Now, I can't say the media hasn't covered this because I saw it in the New York Times. It just didn't get a lot of attention. Did you know there was a terror attack in Berlin? Nobody died. If people died, there probably would be a lot more attention to it. It was not the Russians. I saw the headline and assumed it was Russian sabotage. In fact, the Germans assumed it was Russian sabotage. There have been a number of uncovered Russian plots in Germany to sabotage independent groups, supposedly. This was not the Russians. It wasn't the radical Islamists. It wasn't Al-Qaeda. It wasn't ISIS. It was the villain of the day, the big bad villain, the environmentalists. Now, this story is from January 5th, but the power still hasn't come back on in parts of Berlin. In its third full day, a widespread power failure in Berlin resulting from an arson attack started to tug on the nerves of tens of thousands of people, making do without heat, electricity, cell phone service, and warm food or drinks. It also had them questioning the infrastructure and security. The power cuts started on Saturday when firefighters were called to a fire at a cable transom that crossed a canal to connect one of Berlin's biggest power plants to residents. A country like Russia will be carefully watching this to see where the critical points are, said Urin Eicher, a 56-year-old resident. I'd prefer it wasn't quite so obvious. A far-left pro-environmental organization that called itself the Vulcan Group posted a 4,163-word letter. Stop right there. You know it was the environmentalist group because no one else is going to bother to write 4,000 words. But the left-wing environmentalists, they would absolutely do it. By the way, did you know that in this country, and I think globally, something like 85% of the environmental activists are white women? I'm not making that up. I saw that article with The Economist or somewhere the other day. It's like 85% of the radical environmentalists in the world are white women. Greta Thunberg. In any event, a 4,163-word letter claiming responsibility that the authorities said they were taking seriously. Now, clearly the letter was written by a man because it took responsibility as opposed to blaming everyone else. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. The group said the action was aimed at the energy industry. Initially, the cuts affected 45,000 homes and 2,200 businesses. By Monday night, the city restored power to some neighborhoods, leaving 27,800 homes and 1,450 businesses in the southwestern part of Berlin without power as temperatures stayed below freezing and snow and ice blanketed the ground. Schools and preschools extended their New Year's vacation. The S-Bahn, the city's commuter train that serves as a lifeline to other districts, had been out of commission until Monday, limiting public transportation to buses and the subway, which were operating because it runs off a different grid. The authorities opened emergency shelters and other spaces where residents can warm up and recharge their phones. Hotels offered spare beds at discount rates for residents. Because the power outage also affected mobile communications, the fire department set up 8 emergency call centers where residents could call police. Authorities predicted it would take until tomorrow, Thursday, to reestablish power. Kind of crazy. Now, this one guy got word of what was actually happening, why the power was out, and he was way more concerned about his phone being charged than freezing. It's near the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There have been saboteurs. Now, here's what they did. The perpetrators set fire to a cable bridge that contained 5 main power lines. They planted incendiary devices underneath the cables. Last September, a power failure caused by a similar attack on infrastructure left 45,000 people in the capital's southeast without power for 60 hours. Now, let's pause here for a moment. This is the second time they've been able to pull this off. 45,000 people without power the last time, 45,000 people this time. It's the environmentalists, and what's so crazy about all of it, the insanity of it all, is that this is the second time it's happened. And the Germans continue to coddle these people. The environmentalists continue to be coddled. The environmentalists are the bad guys these days. Look at what's his name? Thanos. Thanos wanted to kill half the living beings in the universe. You know, what is it? Sonny Bunch had that piece in the Washington Post a while back about how environmentalists are the great villain of the day. You got Orm in Aquaman wanted to kill all of humanity to save the oceans. You got Thanos wanted to snap his finger and kill half the planet. You had Samuel L. Jackson in what the Kingsman wanted to kill the population of the planet and reheal it with the pothead rich people. The environmentalists are the bad guys, and here, environmentalists in Germany have now twice taken out the power grid in portions of Berlin using explosive devices. In this country, do you know how many trains have derailed in this country? More than a dozen in the past 3 or 4 years. More than a dozen trains have derailed due to sabotage by environmentalists, and it doesn't get a lot of media attention. It was only in the last 2 years that the New York Times sang the praises of a man who wrote a book on how to build pipe bombs to blow up pipelines in this country. And now think about this. There was a story while we were out over Christmas vacation about just how effective the Trump administration has been in undermining the green initiatives in California. You know, California was setting about banning cars in California. The Trump administration steamrolled through a bunch of regulations that prohibit California from banning fossil fuel burning vehicles. There's nothing California can do about it. In fact, one of the California lawyers who drafted the plan to ban vehicles said it was a shock and awe campaign, like something they never expected. Well, you left Donald Trump on the sidelines for 4 years where he could think about this stuff along with his friends. I have a prediction. It's not a prediction for tomorrow or next year. It's a prediction for 100 years from now. I think political historians are going to look back and say the worst thing that ever happened to the American political left was beating Donald Trump in 2020. Because it allowed him and his supporters to sit on the sidelines for 4 years and plot, not just how to win re-election, but how to blow up the system once they got there. And whether you like him or not, you cannot argue with the fact that he has blown up the system. He has steamrolled through the barriers erected by the political elite in this country to preserve their power. The political elite in this country are the ones who have embraced the most radical environmental agenda in the country. It is the political elite who are perfectly fine driving up costs on the poor over power, over meat, over produce, over their vehicles, drive up the cost of vehicles so they have to use public transportation, drive up the cost of power so they have to sweat during the summer and freeze during the winter, drive up the cost of meat so they have to eat other things, subsidize synthetic beef, tell people repeatedly that the most processed foods are the worst for you, and then force them to eat the processed synthetic beef that nobody wants, that they're all going bankrupt over manufacturing now because nobody wants it. And around the world, not just in Berlin, but in this country, The environmentalists have engaged in sabotage. They've blown up pipelines. They've sabotaged railroads. They've taken out power grids. They're only going to get more desperate. Now, let's tie this to a story from yesterday. Yesterday, I told you the Arthur Brooks story in The Atlantic, that something like 41% of Democratic college-age students will not support a Republican business, and a third of them don't want to work for Republicans or have Republican friends. When politics becomes your religion, you do horrible things in the name of politics. When the environment becomes your religion, you do even more horrible things. Remember, Hitler was an environmentalist. Yeah, let's not rearrange history here. Hitler was an environmentalist who actually actively toyed with the idea of forcing all Germans to become vegetarians. That's actually in the Nazi Party platform in the 1930s, to transition the country to vegetarianism. It'd be good for them. Nanny state do-gooderism backed by environmentalism. So many of the economic, ecological policies of the far left these days mirror Hitler's policies. By the way, speaking of Hitler, you know that Nutricell company where they make methylene blue or whatever, the supposed cancer cure? They're now the owner of the company on their account came out and declared that Hitler needs to be better understood and needs to be destigmatized, and is now backing white nationalists. The people have lost their mind. Twitter has been a floodgate of insanity in the world. You got the white nationalists out there trying to, quote unquote, destigmatize Hitler. You got the environmentalists out there plotting terror attacks around the country, blowing at the power grid in Germany. It's only a matter of time before they start doing it here, though. They feel helpless, and helpless people sometimes feel backed into a corner, and people feel backed into a corner. They turn violent sometimes. These people are going to turn violent against you and me because they think they got to save the planet. Greta Thunberg is out there urging ecological violence and environmentalist violence to shut down the world and cripple the capitalist economy. They always hate capitalism, too. They're fine with the polluters in China because they're communists. The Chinese are building, like, I want to say 100 coal-powered power plants for every one we're taking offline. It's crazy. Massive expansion of coal power in China. But the do-gooder environmentalists, they're okay with the Chinese because they're communists. Their intentions are pure. It's the capitalists who are actually reducing emissions who are the bad guys. Remember, the environmentalists went after Toyota because Toyota decided they didn't want to do battery-powered vehicles. They wanted to do hybrid vehicles that were hyper-efficient vehicles, but didn't completely give up fossil fuels. And so the environmentalists tried to oust the chairman of Toyota and vandalize Toyota dealerships around the world. Turns out Toyota won the argument. And the lie here that these people are actually committed to the environment is they don't want nuclear power. In Germany, they're trying to shut down nuclear power plants. They just don't want us to use power. The environmentalists want the world to win, not the people to win. They want the jungles to creep back in. They want the wolves to come back. They want us to die off. The environmentalists are committed to saving the planet at humanity's expense when God gave us this planet and told us to be good stewards of it. Of course, they don't believe in God. They believe in Gaia, the Greek goddess of the earth, who came out of chaos. The environmentalists are turning into terrorists globally. And they are an increasingly important benefactor of the Democratic Party. You can't take the Democrats out of this. You can't. The environmentalists are funding the Democratic Party. The billionaire, self-hating, self-loathing environmentalists, they're major donors to the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party agenda that wants us to give up cars and fossil fuels and beef. The Democratic Party that wants to penalize you for having children. They need the workers. They want the illegal aliens. They don't want you to have kids to replenish the population. They just want illegal aliens to come in while we all die off. They're worse and even more aggressive in Europe because the government in Europe has coddled them for so long. The environmental terrorists in Germany, they're bringing in a federal prosecutor in Germany. That's a big deal in Germany. It means that the whole of the German government is taking seriously this attack in their capital, Berlin. But for years, they've coddled the environmentalists in Germany. They've tried to humor the environmentalists. They've shut down their natural gas power facilities. They've shut down their nuclear facilities. They've relied on the Russians for natural gas and wind and solar power. They've coddled the environmentalists, and still the environmentalists, it's never enough for them. It's never enough. They want to wipe out humanity. You're on notice here. Big terror attack in Germany. We're going to see more environmentalist madness in this country, too. It's only a matter of time. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. There is some breaking news. The Speaker of the House has been asked about being flexible on the Hyde Amendment that prohibits taxpayer funding of abortion. This is a direct quote from the Speaker of the House. We are not going to change the standard that we're not going to use taxpayer funding for abortion. I'm just not going to allow that to happen. Good for the Speaker of the House. This is one of the first times he's actually distanced himself from positions of the president. Very interesting. By the way, other breaking news happening. There has been a shooting at ICE agents in Minneapolis. Law enforcement official was in front of a vehicle while it happened, and the person tried to accelerate and run over the ICE agent, it appears, as well. This is a developing story. They fatally shot the woman during this immigration confrontation. I will try to get you the details on that. Just wild story. What's so interesting about the coverage is that in the New York Times covering it, you have to read 7 paragraphs in before you get to the fact that ICE agents were rammed by this woman's vehicle when they opened fire. It appears so the shooting is ICE agents shooting the woman who tried to run over the ICE agents as they were there to detain people. I got to tell you, the progressives doubling down on this, like I'm in the camp that it's part of the Trump administration. By the way, Susie Wiles is on my side on this, that they overplayed their hand. And in fact, I'm told that several of the president's closest political advisors have come to him and told him, you got to restrain Department of Homeland Security, that they are deporting so many people so rapidly who aren't necessarily criminals that it's starting to alienate the president from the Hispanic voters. And it's causing a backlash that you can still deport a massive number of people, but target the criminals first. And it appears the president's team has taken that to heart, and they're focusing on people who actually have criminal records or pending indictments against them. And the left is still out there trying to defend these people. It's just crazy. The mayor of Minneapolis is apparently defending the woman who tried to run over the ICE agents as well. Is saying, quote, to ICE, get the F out of here. That's the mayor of Minneapolis on the side of the criminals and the illegal aliens, demonizing government agents. Crazy. You know, Old Glory Bank wants to work with veterans and first responders and active duty military members. They want to work with you as well. They're even working with a nonprofit on for homeless veterans. They're collaborating with a nonprofit to get homeless veterans bank accounts, because there actually are a lot of homeless veterans in the country. Many of them work with groups to rehabilitate themselves. They're struggling with PTSD. Old Glory Bank is being a partner with them to try to get them bank accounts where they can hold their money. And they love working with the veteran and first responder community. They love to work with you as well. Go to oldglorybank.com/Eric. It is my bank. I've got a checking account with them. I got a savings account with them. oldglorybank.com/Eric. They would love to do business with you or your business or your kids if you need a custodial account. And they're great. They really are. I enjoy banking with them. oldglorybank.com/Eric. ERICK. oldglorybank.com/Eric. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.